Welcome to Couples Therapy in 7 Words. I am your co-host, Judy Alexander, and I'm here with my husband, Dr. Bruce Chalmer.
Hello, Judy. Hello, viewers and listeners. Another interview today. It's just
Yes,
fun
we
doing
do.
all these interviews. And the title for today is
Ageless Love, an interview with Doctors Michael and Barbara Grossman.
so we've just completed the interview, and we will be showing that to you shortly. They are folks, and they're in California. We didn't ask them. I'm pretty sure they're
I
in
think they're in
California.
California.
Yeah, and they teach couples about various things. They'll talk about it. And interesting, I think it's interesting. Dr. Michael Grossman is an anti-aging doctor.
Right.
And Dr. Barbara Grossman is the one who's more the couples therapist of the pair, but they have some interesting stuff to say, so you'll check it out. Before we do that, let us put in a plug for, first of all, the podcast itself. Tell your friends, give us 5-star ratings, do all that other stuff that people do
Share,
to
like,
let folks know, and just
the usual.
shoot an email to people and say, hey, check out this, and it's the place to send them is ctn7.com. If you're watching this, you'll see it right above our heads. Clever what you can do with video editing. It's like we can just make things appear above our heads.
And if you're listening, that's CT as in couples therapy in 7, the number 7, the Arabic numeral 7, ctn7.com.
That's the one. And when you go to that website, one of the wonderful things you can do there is acquire our merch. We have, if you heard that, if you're not watching, that was the click of our 2 beautiful Couples Therapy in 7 Words mugs, 15-ounce and 11-ounce sizes, where Judy designed this beautiful logo on one side, and we have our inspiring message, be kind, don't panic, and have faith, on the other. And this is, what a way to enjoy your beverage.
And t-shirts.
And t-shirts we have
And
there
you can
too.
also get the book.
You can also get the book. And
The book that started it all, Reigniting the Spark, Why Stable Relationships Lose Intimacy and How to Get It Back.
Available in pretty much all the formats people do these days. It's available in paperback and actual paper you can hold in your hand. It's available as a Kindle, for ebooks, and it's also available as an audiobook where I did the narration, my very self.
Yes.
And that one's been pretty popular. I mean, they've all been doing okay. That the audiobook, it's the one that
seems
sort of
to be very-
surprised me. It's
Well,
like,
you know
how come
what?
people all like the audiobook?
Because a lot of people listen to audiobooks, honey.
Yeah, I get. Apparently, that's true. You can see, like, I'm not particularly an audiobook person. We go on a long
No.
drive, we'll do it sometimes.
Yeah, occasionally.
Yeah,
We haven't done that in a
But
long time.
that's right. They're folks who that's how mostly they read a lot of their books, and apparently that's how they're reading mine. So enjoy.
Well, without further ado, let's get on with our interview with the Doctors Grossman.
We'll be back afterward.
Our guests today are Doctors Michael and Barbara Grossman. Dr. Barbara Grossman is an individual, marriage, and family therapist, integrating spirituality and psychology into her work. She is an expert in teaching practical skills to couples to create a fulfilling romantic partnership. She has published articles on faith and relationship development in numerous publications, including Religion News, Time, and Marriage.com. Dr. Michael Grossman is a fellow of the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine and specializes in anti-aging regenerative medicine using bioidentical hormone replacement and stem cells to assist men and women in reversing the effects of aging. Dr. Michael and Dr. Barbara's new book is Ageless Love, The Sexy Science of Falling in Love Forever. Michael and Barbara, welcome to Couples Therapy in 7 Words.
Pleasure to be here. Nice to be with you.
Nice to have you here. So maybe just to start off, could you tell us something about your own journey as a couple? How did you get together and how did you end up working together? Whatever you'd like to say about that, I'm sure will be interesting.
Well, we met when we were less than 20. We got married. We were 20 and 21. We had 10 years of a lovely marriage where we did whatever I thought was the right thing. And I liked that marriage. And then Barbara kind of changed. And all of a sudden she had her own opinions and thought about the world the way it should be for her. And that was very difficult for like 6 years or so, very difficult. And out of that, we went through a lot of processes to learn and grow and develop, took many courses, classes, tried counseling, didn't really do very much. But the courses and classes and being mentored by people, we grew a lot. And we learned how to have a relationship where two independent individuals can learn to come together and redo your relationship. And so that's sort of like our story in a nutshell.
I think we
You have
went
the same story?
from being bonded and then detached and aggravated to partnering. And we don't think we're anything special. We think this is how relationships work. Couples get together, they fall in love, they accentuate their similarities, they connect. There's the sexual juice. It's a great recipe. It works for as long as it works, but couples can't stay glued together. There has to be some individuation. It's inevitable. And the longer you wait and the less you're expressing yourself along the way, the more a volcano it will be for the relationship. And then eventually, a man needs to learn how to share feelings, and a woman needs to learn how to talk calmly and rationally. And, out of that, you can begin to partner.
Yeah. I've often noted that we as men have a defective second X chromosome. And so I suspect that's where that business about knowing how to talk about feelings must be on that part of the X chromosome we don't have on the other one,
So, it's interesting. The research for men's brains and women's brain is very controversial because it shows how different the brains are.
Mm-hmm.
People don't like that.
Right.
They think that men and women are the same, but there's a lot of differences between men and women. Like you say, the X and Y chromosomes are very, very different. So a woman's brain, research shows pretty clear that the woman's brain is greatly connected, left and right sides.
Yeah. What is it? 25% more fibers in the corpus callosum than men have, I believe, something like that.
At least it may be a lot more than 25%, but it's a lot more connection, so that the women's brain, when they think and they deal with issues, their whole brain lights up on the PET scans and other scans where you can see both sides of the brains are active. You have the left and right side, which have different general purposes. So the left side of your brain is very individual, focused on problems, isolated problems, and the right side of the brain is focused on the big picture. So if you imagine a bird eating a seed, they are focused on, is it a seed or a rock? You got to analyze it individually. That's the left side of your brain. But if you're looking for a predator, you want to use the right side of the brain because you want to see the big picture. You don't know what the predator is. Is it a snake, or is it an eagle, or is it a cat? You don't know. So you got to have a big picture. So both sides of the brain have different purposes. For women, they go back and forth really fast and they can use both sides of it. But men get isolated, one side or the other. So it's a physiological thing. And to pretend that men and women are, quote, the same is just not to say it's true. But it's not like 100%. It's like 80%. There's a lot of women who have some masculine, a lot of masculine men who have the feminine. But in general, it's a big difference for men and women. And so how they interact is something you've got to realize. And that affects relationship, because if you think that your husband or wife should see the world the way you do,
It doesn't always happen, does it?
You're living in a fantasy. It's not going to happen. No, not. I mean, sometimes it happens, but a lot of times it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm curious. I know, Barbara, I noted in your bio material, you've written about faith and relationships. I have to show you the 7 words that our podcast is named after: be kind, don't panic, and have faith. And I have a particular meaning of faith that in mind that isn't necessarily religious, although it often fits with religious faith. I'm curious though, how do you view how faith fits into relationships and the development of relationships?
Well, I think that's a very complicated question. You're coming at it at a different angle. I think, the best research on self-development comes from people who have some connection to the faith community, because they're interested in maturity and maturing people. And as you mature, your thinking and feeling gets more refined and sophisticated. And so how you understand the meaning of your life gets more complicated and sophisticated. So we don't need to talk about religion at all to talk about faith. It's how you integrate a meaning in life. And the more mature you are in your perspective, the more you can get engaged and bring yourself to relationship. And the more it really has finer and finer levels that you can share yourself and contribute, the more and there's a whole evolutionary process of your personality over time. We talk about that a lot because women and men develop differently over time, especially because women have children, they stay bonded. And so they differentiate later. And men, you were talking before about how men and women are different. In many ways, it really works for relationships, because women like men who are competent. And in order to be competent, you need to think and strategize and produce results. And
we do well in spite of that problem, but nevertheless. Judy seems to like me in spite of that, but nevertheless.
So men are wonderful, and bless your hearts for being men and being committed to what you're committed to. But ultimately, over life, wherever we are, there's more. And if you're in a partnership where you're sharing and telling your truth, there will be a impetus, a motivation to move ahead, to grow, to develop yourself, because partnership pushes a couple, pushes each partner to really look within and understand yourself and share yourself more deeply and explore life. It's a fabulously productive relationship for growth and maturity and spirituality. That's why, that's not even, we're not even talking about the value of couples staying together to raise their children together. We're just talking about the developmental value of a partnership, because there's so much accountability. You can't have a relationship, you can't have a partnership unless you're telling the truth. And a lot of people don't know how to tell the truth, but you learn it in relationship. So there's so much value in relationship. And as you experience relationship over time, it deepens your sense of deeper truths. And I think it allows you to be in touch with principles in life that are universal and eternal. And that's the sense in which I'm happy to talk publicly about faith, because when if you believe in the truth, and if you believe in commitment and sharing love and being accountable, that will take you a long distance in life. And we like to teach couples how to do that, because these are not obvious principles that you have to translate them into skills.
That's a nice segue. Actually, I'm sort of curious how actually sort of two related questions. One being the title of your most recent book, The Sexy Science of Falling in Love Forever. I'm curious, like, if you could say it, standing on one leg, as the old Rabbi Hillel thing was. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And then you also, one of the things you've noted is you're never upset for the reason you think. And I expect that's probably related also to how you managed to fall in love forever. But I'm curious if you can speak to any of that stuff. That's a pretty general question.
Well,
Michael's is in charge of the longevity part and what you need in order to stay young and hot and sexy.
What was the question here, Dave?
He wants to know about the sexy science part, and
especially how do you stay falling in love forever?
So in terms of how do you stay falling in love forever, there are three components we talk about in our book. One is the body, the other is the mind, and the other is the spirit. So in terms of the body, that's an area I'm expert in as an anti-aging doctor. So for men and women, when they get older, they lose their natural youthful hormones. So for women, it's pretty dramatic. Go into menopause, takes 6 months or a year, you lose estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone, and your life changes dramatically. You lose your energy, you lose your brain clarity, you lose your enthusiasm, you lose your muscle stamina, you lose libido, and you don't sleep as good. and your life changes dramatically. It's
Judy's
totally
only 25, so we don't know that yet.
reversible. I've been doing this hormone replacement with the natural human bioidentical hormones for 15 years. And it's just remarkable how it works to change people's lives. And you just feel 10, 20 years younger. And it is just an easy fix. And for men, the process is slower. It doesn't happen in 6 months or a year. Every 5 years, things are a lot less for men. So you don't get sports figures after the age of 45. They can't do professional sports. It's just not possible. They don't have the hormonal needs met. But if you take these natural hormones, you feel that youthfulness, that stamina, brain clarity, muscle stamina, endurance, libido, everything stays youthful. And we have other hormones, the different growth hormone releasing factors, and we have other things that we do for youthfulness. So that's a big part. And that is a key to maintaining passion in a romantic relationship. You can maintain a friendliness and feeling loving towards your husband, wife as you get older. But if you don't have that sexual connection, it changes the romantic passion. It makes it into a more general kind of love, which is nice. But to have that romantic passion, it requires these kinds of hormonal supports. So that's a piece of it. And then we have the other pieces.
So you referenced, Michael says, you're never upset for the reason you think. We help couples understand the history behind the upsets they have. It's usually, a reflection of some injury in childhood. And it's important for a couple to understand each other and what hurts from childhood, and so that you learn not to step on those sensitive parts. You learn how to approach what you want from each other in a nicer way. For example, I have an extreme reaction to loss, even if it's a loss of a thing. I go a little nutty. I'm not proud of it, but that's what I do, even though I've been around a long time, and my losses were a long, long time ago. I lost my dad because my mother decided he was not a grown-up and not suitable to be married to, and she had a way of forcing him out of the picture. And that loss is, just etched into my nervous system. So loss of almost any kind is a button for me. And but I've learned to be calmer about it. And Michael's very aware of my history, and he's very gentle, and he expresses, himself in a way that's very supportive and doesn't agitate those old injuries.
And I learn over time not to personalize her insecurities from 2 years old. It's nothing about me. It's not like I did something wrong, and so I can then be nicer about the whole thing. And so that's what we teach men and women, how to not personalize your own childhood upsets of your spouse. Yeah.
And, in a marriage, I guess it's inevitable that it often becomes a power struggle for couples. How do you help them through that?
Well, first we explain the nature of the power struggle, how it's inevitable, how there's nothing wrong with you, it's not personal. But eventually you both get to a stage where you both want to have a self, want to be independent, want to have it your way. And we teach couples how to share their feelings and how to share what they want in behavioral terms, and how to negotiate it in a way that's calm and rational and respectful. And it's hard to go from being, what women stay accommodating for a long time, because most women have children, and their lives involve a lot of empathy and caretaking, and so they bond and they're sympathetic, and so that has an influence on the relationship. When their children get older, they wake up to how they're independent individuals too, and there's frequently a backlash because they've tolerated a lot, they've over accommodated, they perhaps resent it, and they have to understand. We help our couples understand that it's a process, it's inevitable, and not to take it so personally, and to to transition into sharing what you're coming to understand about yourself and what you want.
Mhm. I wonder, is that relating to what Michael was talking about, in the first, what did you say, 11 years of your marriage or something like that? And then there was a switch happened. I'm curious about that.
Yes, I mean, like all other women, it doesn't matter how educated I am. I was, whatever Michael wanted was fine. I was busy with my babies, and I did whatever he wanted, and he was a happy guy. And then I realized this is not exactly what I envisioned for my life. And I started to speak up, and I started to push back, and that was shocking. And we could very easily have become a statistic, a divorce statistic. But fortunately, we learned a lot in those years, and we transitioned, we moved through that, and we learned how to respect each other and talk calmly, but honestly and openly. And, we've created a great life together. I'm very grateful for, the process of the journey we've had.
And out of that experience, we created our own courses and classes for our patients and our community, where we teach couples these skills. And so we have one course, which is an in-depth course, where we spend 2 4-hour classes with them, and we teach them the skills.
Actually, it's 4 2-hour classes.
That's that right? I didn't say it right.
4 2-hour classes.
Or 2-hour classes.
And we teach skills, and we have a week in between, so they get to practice the skills and come back really solid with them.
And then and now we've created video classes that are more simple and focused on specific areas and problems that couples will have, where they can take 3 20-minute courses, which has a lot of homework for them to do to practice the skills. And those classes include parenting, money upsets, sexual issues, sexual relationship issues, not feeling like you're number one with your partner, and arguing if there's a lot of arguing. So these are real simple, easy to learn courses that people can learn these skills. So Dr. Barbara's the expert in counseling. She's done 65,000 counseling sessions. Isn't that crazy? You probably have done a whole lot too. I counted it up.
I haven't counted. I came to it late. I mean, I didn't start. I mean, I'm 71 now. I didn't start until I was in my early 40s. So I've only been in private practice for 27 years, but that's a bunch of hours. I'm not quite sure how many it is.
10 years behind Barbara, but that's all right. You'll catch up soon. So
I should live so long,
So
from your mouth to God's ears, as we say.
Yes. And so these courses and classes have been just lovely for people to grow and develop the skills that you need, because it really takes skills. And the counseling, the interesting thing is that the counseling helps a lot, but what you're going to come away with, if you develop the skills, that's, you own that forever.
What I like about courses is that you see it's not personal.
everybody's
in the same boat. You have to learn a skill set, and you have to learn that if you come to a course like ours, you come because you're not happy, you're not comfortable, there's conflict, and you can see how you got to this dilemma, and then because we're a couple and we demonstrate all of our skills, couples can see the way out of it. All they do have to practice what we teach them. And it's hard when you come to this point and you haven't spoken up, or you've looked to be accommodating, and the pressure is on you to honor yourself. There's so much emotion involved, but it's hard to have a clear formula and a strategy to express yourself. And so we help people through that transition. So what I find mostly in couples who come to counseling is they don't know how to talk to each other.
Yeah. This might be a good time to transition to our listener letter, I think. So we'll I think will be right up your alley. I guess we'll find out, but I think so.
Okay, you ready?
Okay.
Matt writes, Dear Dr. Chalmer, I've been married to Nora for 8 years. We're both 34 years old and we have no children, although we were planning to start a family soon. A few weeks ago, we went out for what I thought was going to be a romantic dinner as a prelude to starting a family. And while we're at the restaurant, Nora says she wants to call it quits. She just doesn't love me anymore. Worse than that, She said she's not sure she ever really did. She thinks she was in love with the idea of love, but that she doesn't feel that special spark or connection with me. She thinks she was only going through the motions. I bought your book, Reigniting the Spark, and I asked Nora to read it with me. She told me I was wasting my time, that there isn't any spark to reignite. I've begged her to come with me for couples counseling, but she said she won't go. She swears she's not seeing anyone else. She just doesn't have any feelings for me. I don't know what to do. I thought we had a solid relationship. We have a close circle of friends, none of whom saw this coming. We travel a lot together, go rock climbing, and are avid mountain bikers. I am so in love with her, and I thought she was the perfect life mate for me. We're both close with each other's families. I've talked to her parents and asked them if they could help, but they don't want to interfere. How do I end a marriage with someone I love? Am I wasting my time trying to get her to change her mind?
Well, that's definitely a heartbreak. And my hunch is that the woman at one time loved her husband, but stopped sharing openly and honestly. And so her feelings stopped being activated and present. And as she, closed down and just went through the motions of life, she became disconnected with the love she had for him. And it doesn't sound like she's that open in her conversation about what's happened with her feelings.
Mm.
It sounds like she's walled off, and that possibly suggests that that's how she's been living her life with her husband. She's just not shared herself much, and so she doesn't feel a connection, and probably there isn't a connection because she hasn't been sharing. That you need to share yourself in order to feel connected, and that's a challenge for all of us to do and stay current with that. And if it's been a long time since she's been current, and she's unwilling to open up or to explore that, this is really, really sad. But I would approach her that this could be an opportunity for her to understand herself better, understand why this happened, to explore her feelings and develop the feeling part of her life. She hasn't had children. That means she's working. And working women can often be very masculine and in their heads, just like men. And I would invite her to develop to have a committed series of even individual counseling in order to move forward in her life, to make sure that her decision is a good one.
Of course, she's not the one writing in. It's her husband that's writing in. So that's a tall order for him.
There's a lot for this husband to learn. He's responsible for the quality of the relationship too, and staying connected in a certain way. If this is her position and she's not willing to change it, he needs to grab the center of his spirit and claim his self-respect and accept this and move on. And I would encourage him not to beg, not to emotionalize this, but to stay, with a stand tall and know his value, and not whimper about this. If that's how she feels, that's okay. And maybe he's taking a position and having the appreciation of his own value will remind her who he is, because it sounds like he's de-selfing himself, which is a turnoff to a woman. Women actually, while women complain about men being manly, the fact is women like a man who stands tall and respects himself. And so he has to watch that. But he needs to learn that for himself that they did a lot of great things together, but it doesn't sound like they stayed heart to heart connected in conversation. The sharing cannot stop in a relationship, and it has to be as deep as is possible given the age.
Is there anything you'd like to add to that, Michael?
Well, I think this is an opportunity to express the big picture of romance. Romantic relationships are different than love relationships of other sorts. Parent-child, friends, brothers, sisters. those kind of relationships are like the ocean. It's like smooth and calm, and you just love your brother or sister, and you don't see him for 2 years, and then you see him again, and you're right back there, and you just love them. Don't do that with a romantic relationship. It doesn't work. It's like fire. It needs the air. It needs the intensity. If it doesn't have it, it goes out. And so that's what romantic relationship, you have to learn how to make requests of each other, whether you're having problems or not. Whoever you love now compared to 10 years ago, they're a different person. You've got to keep knowing how to make requests of each other, how to thank and appreciate each other, how to be open to the new way you or your partner sees the world. And so that takes ongoing effort and energy and interaction. And so don't think just because you haven't had an argument, everything is good. No, it doesn't work that way. It works that way for a sister, not for a romantic relationship.
Sure.
Good point.
And anything else we ought to be asking you about, or you'd like to be talking about?
Good question. I don't know. I could tell you that our hobby, aside from giving courses, and we actually weave this into courses, we're competitive ballroom dancers.
Oh, how about that? Wow.
And it's one of the ways in which we enjoy each other.
Mhm.
Ballroom dancing, we use ballroom dancing often as a metaphor for the male-female relationship, how it works.
Mhm.
I often send couples out to dance together, social dance. They don't have to be competitive and crazy like we are, but it's a great hobby because you remember how it is to be a man and a woman together when you dance. This culture is not really good at distinguishing, the chemistry of men and women. We like to think we're both the same. We can all do the same thing. And on a certain level, that's true. But we're not the same. And it's important to connect with the vitality of the differences.
Yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me, because one of the things that you wrote about is that we live in a masculinized society. Can you elaborate a little bit more on that, and how do you see that impacting relationships?
So in our culture here in America, but that around the world, in all the developed countries, women are brought into the work world. It's only happened in the United States in World War II when women started working. They weren't working before that. Well, not a lot.
Working in the workplace.
And so now women are brought into the work world. And in the work world, you got to achieve and accomplish to be successful. That's your purpose in being there. And you're supposed to perform. That's very masculinized kind of a thing. Whereas the feminine kind of a way of being is to be raising children and being nurturing and being open to the big picture. So if we imagine what happened over the last 10,000 plus years, women were home with the kids, taking care of the kids, and watching out for the animals, the weather, picking the berries, and how are the kids doing, and so on. So that they're looking at everything all around them. The man is out hunting a tiger or a lion or an elephant or whatever he's hunting, and he can't think about three things at once. He's got to focus on one thing, that thing he's hunting, or else it might eat him.
And hunting is a metaphor for your business goal.
Right.
And so we women have become very goal oriented and strategic, and it's great because we can create and produce, and we can be independent. We don't have to be in a situation we don't want because we have our own money. That's a great gain for women. But in a lot of respects, it's created a power struggle between men and women, so we forget how to talk to each other, and it becomes really tough, and it doesn't forward motion the conversation. It doesn't solve things. It doesn't open up sharing. It's rough.
And when you want to have romance, you need to have a masculine and feminine coming together.
There's some interesting research. We're in Vermont, and there's some interesting research some folks at the University of Vermont did a number of years ago. There are other places too, but I know some of the researchers were there, where they were looking at couples who were striving to kind of escape traditional gender roles, not to resist them completely, but just not to be governed by them. And what they found was the couples who were the most striving for egalitarianism generally were not particularly angry with each other, generally happy with each other. The one area where they were having problems was their sex lives were boring in the bedroom.
Yeah.
And there was a subset of that group that reported to the researchers, and the researchers said, sometimes rather sheepishly reported to the researchers, well, actually, we do have kind of a lively sex life because we play games, power games. They'll play power games in bed. They'll do things that involve power exchange, some kind of dominant submission thing. Not always the man being dominant, but one way or the other. And that seems to spark the sexiness. So what they found when they looked at the sample of couples they looked at, they found a sweet spot where I think it was, they were looking at, traditionally masculine things, traditionally feminine things. The sweet spot wasn't 100-0 in either direction. It was 60-40, where I think they were saying the man earns 60% of the money. There's lots of couples that deviate from this and do just fine, obviously, but that's what they were saying. The man earns 60% of the money, the woman does 60% of the traditionally feminine chores, and then 40% the other way. And that, because what they found was, in heterosexual couples, what was stimulating sexually, the men wanted the women to seem like women, and the women wanted the men to seem like men.
Right.
And it worked better that way.
Right.
And so that fits with what you're saying. Yeah.
It's fascinatingly interesting. So in our book, Ageless Love, we talk a lot about how the physical world of quantum mechanics and atoms and electrons, how it is a metaphor for masculine feminine relationships. So we talk about what makes the whole world work. Our whole world is made up of molecules. You have atoms, individual atoms, but the atoms don't bring out life. What brings out life is when the atoms come together to form molecules. What that means is that you have hydrogen and oxygen. If they come together, you get hydrogen, air, oxygen in the air, not an atom, but an oxygen molecule. And you get water, H2O. It's a molecule. The atoms are combining to form molecules. And then you get all the carbon atoms that form proteins in your body. That's what life is about. It all occurs because in the outer shell of every atom, it desires to have an electron pair. If it doesn't, it will share it with another atom.
You're taking me back to high school chemistry.
Right.
You're triggering me.
We'll process her trauma later. It's okay.
That sharing is like a peculiar thing because two electrons are both negative. You would think that they wouldn't want to share because they're negative, both negative. But if they have opposite spins, there's enough of a difference that they can squeeze into one orbit, and it actually makes the energy of the atom more stable, of the molecule more stable. And that creates all life. So what you're describing about what makes a relationship work, it can't be the same. You can't have two lawyers and two accountants coming together and being romantic. They could be friends, but not romantic. So romance is different. That's what ballroom dancing is about. So when we describe ballroom dancing to people, we show them how when you hold your hands, if you watch Dancing with the Stars and you see them in hold, the hold is very, very intense. No one else
I'll
could
spare you my impression of Len.
He does a good Len.
It's been a while, so I better not do it now. That's all right.
So you have the two people in the couples are holding themselves very strongly together in a firm hold, but there has to be movement for self-expression. You got to have tightness, but at the same time, you've got to hold in a way that creates movement. That's what romantic relations is about. Two people, only two, in a tight bond of romance, but you've got to have movement where you can be self-expressed for each other. And that's what we teach as to how to make relationship ageless and how to make it permanent.
So it's a balance of individuality and connection. And so Michael's image of the electrons is the whole universe is founded on these electron pairs. So we come out of the dance of electron pairs, and it's so that the partner relationship is so creative, It really can stimulate, a lifetime of personal development and relationship development. And of course, it produces a family. And so it's a privilege to support that relationship. It's so key, and especially now in our culture where there's some unstable forces that are, I think, hurting children. And if adults can get focused and take responsibility for the quality of their relationships, I think our children would do a lot better.
And clearly for children, those children who don't have fathers, huge problems.
Mm-hmm.
That couple, the balance between the masculine and feminine to create the next generation being healthy. Otherwise, it's a big problem.
And even if the couple doesn't, the ideal is the couple stay together. But if couples don't stay together, that we need to restore respect between men and women so that we can share in the partnering of our of parenting with our children.
Yeah, you're here.
Yep, very much.
Yep. Well, thank you for doing this. Much appreciated. And do you have a website that we can put on the screen at this when I edit this at this moment?
So we have two sites. One is the agelesslovequiz.com, where people can take a little quiz and see which and where they have the biggest complexities in their romance, and sign up for some class that would be focused on their own skills. And the fallinginloveforever.com is our general website where you can look at our other books and classes. We have several other books that we've written also, and I've written a book on meditation, and we've written a book called The Marriage Map, and these are all really helpful books for people to grow in their own personal and couple life.
Well, thank you very much.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Really, thank you for inviting us.
Well, we hope you enjoyed that interview with Dr. Barbara and Dr. Michael Grossman. They had some really interesting things to say
They did
about
indeed.
Relationships.
Yep, they did. And we've got a bunch of other interviews already lined up. Mm-hmm. And folks, if you were, I don't think we said this in our intro to this, if you would like to be on the show, please let us know. If you'd like to sign up for a time, you can go to our website, ctn7.com, mm-hmm. and sign up for a time. It's there's a link there that goes right to our calendar, and you can sign up. We usually record on Fridays, but can accommodate you if I think the only times you'll get offered are Friday times. But if that doesn't work for you, just shoot us an email,
and we can fit you in. And like Matt, who wrote in to us, if you have a question that you'd like us to read on the air, please go to our website, ctn7.com, or you can email Bruce at ctn7.com or Judy at ctn7.com.
And that website, ctn7.com. See, if you keep saying it and saying it and saying it.
ctn7.com.
ctn7.com. That's how you can also have access to all our episodes as well.
Exactly.
And let us put in a plug for the book.
Right, Reigniting the Spark, Why Stable Relationships Lose Intimacy and How to Get It Back.
And please check that out and read that book, because that will prepare you very well for the next book I'm working on now, which is still going to be a while before it comes out. But it'll be a nice follow-up to that book. It'll stand on its own, but it'll especially be helpful to you if you've read Reigniting the Spark. So I would invite you to do that as well. So until next time.
Remember, be kind.
Don't panic.
And have faith.